We have as a guest today Kim Rago, the Executive Director of the Environmental Forum of Marin. And Kim, please say hello to our audience.
Hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having us today.
Yeah. Oh, it's such a pleasure to have you here. I was just saying to Kim that the Environmental Forum of Marin is one of the best examples of a community-based organization focused on something that's meaningful, so successful in what they do and what they bring to Marin. And I'm wondering, Kim, can you tell us a little bit about Environmental Forum and what its mission is?
Sure. Environmental Forum has been around for 48 years, which is really a terrific amount of time. And in fact, one of the co-founders, Martin Griffin, turns 100 this year.
Wow.
He lives down in Tiburon, and it is really exciting. And how it started was there was a group of individuals very concerned about our open space and development in Western Marin and in particular. So they started a group together to help save that open space. And in order to do that, they realized they had to train people who could go and speak in front of city councils and in front of the board of supervisors to talk about the issues. So that whole premise of how Environmental Forum started has remained, but our focus has shifted a little bit because now we're faced with such big problems with climate change and everything else that we realized we had to be a little bit more open about the direction we were going in. So technically, Environmental Forum promotes a sustainable world through environmental education, and that mission has remained the same.
And you, as I have told you personally, and will tell you again on the air, have done a great job at that. I can't help but think that a lot of that has to do with the quality of people that you attract as an organization, and you as the executive director must set the tone for how things go, a certain level of dialogue and attention to detail. What brought you to this work?
Well, that's interesting. Just to comment on that, I do, again, want to say that we have an amazing working board, and I think we've learned to work really well together. And we do have just very, very dedicated members who bring these events and other programs together. My background was I grew up in the East Coast, and I was a kid that was outside a lot. I ended up going to school in Maine. I was a biology major. And I think one thing my dad was really good about was sort of putting a sense in us about how important nature was. We would sit over dinner in the summer at a lake in New Hampshire, and he would talk about the water quality. Things like that were conversation at our dinner. And then when I came out here, my career path was really different, but I did work for Smith & Hawken in the corporate headquarters for a long time, which was the gardening, farmer gardening company. And then that concept of sustainability really came in then. And then about 10 years ago, I got more and more interested and joined the forum. And it was really through the Environmental Forum that launched this real passion and understanding of how important and the state of our environment and what we needed to do about it.
I feel like that's something we have to try harder at. And that is bringing an appreciation of the outdoors to generations who are newer to this planet than I am, certainly. And so again, one of the things that I hope to do in a discussion with you is give kids, families, a sense that there is something to be done. It's so easy to get discouraged by the level of challenges, the number of challenges, especially in environmental work. How do you encourage people to get involved? And kids, how do you encourage them?
Well, I think that's a really good question. And sort of how we've dealt with that is we have a series of classes in the fall. They'll be starting again next fall, our master classes. Is at the end, we tell people pick a project, pick something that you're really passionate and put your energy into. So, in order to complete the class series projects, a requirement, and that's where I think people really find that there is something that they care about, but it has to be something you're passionate about. Some people really care a lot about sea level rise. This last time we had someone very concerned about food waste. I mean, that's a huge issue. And what do you do about it? So she's put her energy in there. We had a couple of other masterclass participants work on a foodware ordinance, take out foodware, reduction in plastics, things like that. And that's really where, and because you can get overwhelmed, it's overwhelming.
One of the things too that we bump into is the notion that things can seem complicated, like solar energy can seem complicated. Oh, there's a new technology for stoves that mean you don't have to burn gas. What is that called again? Induction? And each of these levels of complexity tend to put people off, right? Well,
Mm-hmm.
I can't do
Yeah.
that. I can't afford a new stove or an electric car, and I'm going to recycle, okay? And
Mm-hmm.
what do you say to people who say that it's all too complicated? I mean, how do you decomplicate things?
You just take one step at a time. One thing that has been really good about the events we've had recently is there's been a little follow up sheet about if you're interested in this topic, these are the things you can do about it. We have those posted to our environmental library page on our website, but just trying to make it easy, follow up something with some direction about what you can do. But we know, I mean, and all of us are guilty of this, we can't do everything. There are some things that are going to work better for our family than others, and you just have to focus on what starts to work and add to it every single day.
All right. So, what is next on Environmental Forum's calendar? What are you guys doing, especially since we're all doing it at distance now?
Well, that's the thing. We have in person events, and now we're really having to reinvent ourselves. So, we are taking a program that was at one point scheduled for March. It's going to happen June 18th. It's on sea level rise. It'll feature Christina Hill, Stuart Siegel, and Catherine Boyer. And we would love for anyone to join us. If you go to the homepage of our website, you'll see a link there for it.
I wonder too if you also find yourself, pointing out that there are so many different organizations in Marin. Environmental Forum is one, yet you yourselves do a terrific job at partnering with a half dozen organizations who maybe do a little bit more specialization or serve a certain
Mhm.
community more than another. Do you find yourself talking
Yeah.
about that and making sure that people find a way to meet other people in their neighborhood or with their interests?
Well, and this was also an objective the board had to really expand community and make our community bigger. Bringing partners into our nighttime events is new, but it was something we decided we really wanted to do because we want to be more inclusive and we recognize we have to work together. To master these problems, we have to work together. And the Environmental Forum is really well positioned to bring groups together because we don't necessarily have one specialty. So we can talk about a different issue and then we try to bring in the professionals and the people, the experts on that issue to talk about it.
Especially nowadays where we're all having to take care of so many different things, our household in a different way, our partner or people close to us in different ways. How are you taking care of yourself? And what are you looking forward to doing in the near term future that will, sort of feed your passion for the outdoors or doing things?
My son said something so interesting to me years ago, and it always sticks with me. I was working in my office, which is an old storage room, and working away, and it was on an environmental, some issues. And his friend and him came home from school and popped in the office and looked at me, and his friend said, "What is she doing in there?" And my son said, "Oh, something for the environment, but I don't know what that could be. She hasn't been outside all day." And what struck me was we do have a little bit extra time right now. And I'm outside in our garden, which I feel very fortunate to have access to, planting vegetables, seeing how nature's changing, looking at the clear sky. And I think constantly reminding us ourselves of why it is that we're working so hard on this and what's at stake is just so important. And you hear about there being clearer skies and things like that now, and animals running through the city streets because there aren't cars. And I think this could be a preview for how things could be if we're able to take the big picture and really start to turn things around. So I'm really taking this time to remind myself of that.
You know, I'm glad you brought up the blue skies that we're seeing because on the one hand, nobody wants to fix the world via pandemic, right? Nobody wants to slow down and smell the roses because they have to, because they can't go outside and you know, people are suffering and dying. But we do want to, at the same time, find a way to take the lessons that we are learning by force, take those lessons and apply them going forward. Is that something you talk about with your colleagues?
The concern is, and the most important thing is people getting better and having a way to sustain themselves. But once we get beyond that, is returning to the way that we've always done things, you know, which will bring those carbon emissions right back up again. And if we're able as a society to take this time and to start looking at ways we can do things better, you know, if we can green our economy, get better public transportation, take less plane flights, car rides, things like that. And those are just things here. You know, how you react, how you bring down your carbon emissions can be very different in different locations. But I'm hoping that we will be carrying that through so that we can see this as a preview for what could come.
Well, a thoughtful response, as I always expect from you and anybody associated with Environmental Forum. Kim, thank you very much for joining us. Will you come back and talk to us again?
I would love to, and I will unplug my phone next time.
All right. Thank you, Kim Rago.
Thank you very much.